We're 25, 26 years after the advent of the Macintosh, which was an astoundingly seminal event in the history of human-machine interface and in computation in general. It fundamentally changed the way that people thought about computation, thought about computers, how they used them, and who and how many people were able to use them. It was such a radical change, in fact, that the early Macintosh development team in 82, 83, 84 had to write an entirely new operating system from the ground up. Now, this is an interesting little message, and it's a lesson that has since, I think, been forgotten or lost or something, and that is, namely, that the OS is the interface. The interface is the OS. It's like the Land and the King and Arthur. They're inseparable. They are one. And to write a new operating system was not a capricious matter. It wasn't just a matter of tuning up some graphics routines. There were no graphics routines. There were no mouse drivers. So it was a necessity. But in the quarter century since then, we've seen all of the fundamental supporting technologies go berserk. So memory capacity and disk capacity has been multiplied by something between 10,000 and 1 million. Same thing for processor speeds. Networks, we didn't have networks at all at the time of the Macintosh's introduction. And that has become the single most salient aspect of how we live with computers. And of course, graphics. Today, $84.97 at Best Buy buys you more graphics power than you could have gotten for $1 million from SGI only a decade ago. So we've got that incredible ramp up. Then on the side, we've got the web and increasingly the cloud, which is fantastic, but also in the regard in which an interface is fundamental, kind of a distraction. So we've forgotten to invent new interfaces. Certainly, we've seen in recent years a lot of change in that regard, and people are starting to wake up about that. So what happens next? Where do we go from there? The problem, as we see it, has to do with a single simple word, space, or a single simple phrase, real-world geometry. Computers and the programming languages that we talk to them in, that we teach them in, are hideously insensate when it comes to space. They don't understand real-world space. It's a funny thing, because the rest of us occupy it quite frequently and quite well. They also don't understand time, but that's a matter for a separate talk. So what happens if you start to explain space to them? One thing you might get is something like the luminous room. Luminous room is a system in which it's considered that input and output spaces are co-located. It's a strangely simple